guys, welcome back. It's Josh with the Financial Advisor Car Guy. This week, we are going to learn how to do an oil change. I'm going to be using my 68 Ford Mustang as our dummy car. And the reason for that is because I am getting it all spiffed up for a car show tomorrow and realized I hadn't changed the oil in 2 years. Now that's horrible. The upside to that though, is I actually just pulled the filter off. And on the filter, this is kind of a tip for you guys at home, but what I do is I write on here the date and the mileage of the oil change. So in my case right here, this oil change was done on 3/12 of 22 with 18,006 miles. Now the reason I'm not losing too much sleep over it being 2 years since my last oil change is I just checked the odometer. I'm at 18,062 miles. I've driven a whopping 56 miles in this car in the last 2 years. So as you guys know, if you followed along on this car, I don't drive it very often, mostly because of little things here and there. It's been in the shop, the top has been worked on. I just redid all the suspension and the steering components down right here up front. And so now the car should be roadworthy enough that I can drive it a little more regularly. So with that, I decided I'm gonna go ahead and change the oil and then progress from here. So in order to change the oil, it's pretty simple. And if you guys have never done this before, bear with me. I have a lift. You guys might need to use jacks and jack stands. It's a little bit different, a little more challenging. I can just reach under here very plainly, eye level, and just do it, which is awesome. But here we go. First thing you're gonna do is get your car in the air. Get your oil drain pan, put it under your oil pan, right? I do something first. Before I put the car up in the air, I remove the gas or the oil cap, okay? Remove the oil cap. Then come down below and remove your drain plug. It'll fall straight into your pan, hopefully. It might make a mess, it might go all over the place. In my case, it didn't. It just went straight into the pan, no mess, no problem at all. You're going to need a socket, and for mine, it was a 13/16, which is kind of an obscure size, but that's what my drain plug is. Then you let it drain. Once it's done draining, I then remove the oil filter, and I have an oil wrench, which helps me spin it on and off. I just took this one off a moment ago. You're gonna see it's draining into the pan, and my drain plug, my drain hole is now complete. It's still dripping right there, but it's for the most part empty now. So what I'm gonna do next is prime the new filter, which is right here, okay? I'm using a Fram Ultra Synthetic. And again, this is for a 302 Ford Mustang 5-liter engine. This car takes exactly 5 quarts, and that includes the oil in the filter. So what I'm going to do now is actually prime and prep the filter to be reinstalled. The way to go about that, and I'll show you that here in a moment, but you're gonna actually put oil inside the filter, and then you're going to use some oil to lubricate this seal, and that will actually help get a better seal up under there. So here we go. All right, so what I recommend you do is you keep a paper towel handy just in case you spill or just in case it gets all over your fingers. But basically what you wanna do is you get your oil filter ready, you get your oil. Now I'm using full synthetic. I'm using a very inexpensive SuperTech, which is Walmart's oil, and a Fram filter. Now, SuperTech is kind of an interesting animal because it's actually produced by one of the major oil companies. It's been Valvoline, it's been Mobil 1, it's been Pennzoil. It's been something major its entire life. It's just branded for Walmart. It's much like when you go to Costco and you buy a Kirkland brand. Sometimes Kirkland makes it, but generally it's a major, whatever it is, that's building it behind the scenes. So that's what I'm using. And again, as you know, I've only driven that car 50 some odd miles since its last oil change. So I don't need a super expensive oil. And again, for the miles and whatnot, a Fram filter is just fine. It works great. It works really well. So here we go. Now I'm just gonna slowly do this, and you'll see it, kind of going in. Don't want to do too much. It holds about half a quart. Okay. Let the air settle. I can see it's not quite halfway full in there. I'm gonna wipe a little oil away here. But again, you wanna do this as clean as possible because it's really easy to make a huge mess. So you wanna do it slow and steadily. While I'm letting that do its thing, this is the filter that I used. It is their Ultra. It's designed for synthetic oil. You don't have to use anything that nice. That was a whopping $9. The motor oil, all 5 quarts, was I think 21. So it came to literally $29.88 for me to do this oil change. So that's pretty sweet. And at that price, I don't mind doing it every 50 miles, every 2 years. All right, so we're gonna keep going here. Oh, got a little carried away. Oh, slow down. So those are the kind of things you gotta be careful of. Once again, I'm gonna wipe this so I don't get it all over the place. You'll see that that oil has a really light, clear color. That's how it should look. When it comes out of your car, it's gonna be a much darker brown. Sometimes if your motor's really struggling, it might be black. That's not good. And that's normal, but it's not great. So you wanna make sure that you change that regularly. So I'm gonna add a little bit more. Okay, I saw it bubble a little bit, so I think we're getting close. I'm gonna let it finish draining. Okay, and now I'm gonna show you what I'm gonna do with this, is now I take it and I run it around this filter. So you can see this seal right here. And I'm gonna actually, normally that's how I do it, but because I'm trying to do it on camera and stuff, I'm gonna just use my finger. You can take excess oil and then just rub it on the seal. You can take it from here, push it in. Okay, that's good. It'll get in there and then use it on the seal. And then the last step really is you're going to want to clean and dry the outside the seal, because that will drip. I have this little channel, the gutter, if you will, and it's sort of full right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and take another paper towel and dry that up and clean it up a little bit. And then I'm gonna go ahead and screw this on. Hang tight. So once you're ready to screw this back on, what I like to do first is I'll put my drain plug back in. So I wanna clean that up a little bit. So I generally will grab another paper towel, which unfortunately I don't have. I have an old one over here, so I'll just dry it real quick. But I usually will dry that up real nice. Try to dry out the threads and make everything shiny and new and clean again. There's a washer on there, but it's a solid fixed washer, if you will. And then you just kind of go ahead and start threading it in by hand. Once it's threaded in just a touch, and this is the way I do it. I'm gonna use this microfiber towel, but I like to wipe around inside. So I can get underneath where the gasket, sorry, I'm moving my camera around. If I can get around that gasket and just kind of make sure that things are nice and clean and dry. And then I'll thread this in by hand until I can't. Okay, so that's nice and hand tight there. And then I'm gonna use my ratchet. And so again, sorry, I'm holding the phone, so it's not super easy, but I wanna just tighten that. And you don't wanna over tighten it. Don't like get crazy on it, because it will leak and it will do other things. So just nice and snug. And you'll kind of know when enough's enough. And then there's probably a torque spec in your book. I don't have that handy, so I'm just gonna do it. Like I said, I've done it before. I'm just gonna trust the process. Now for the oil filter, there is oil in here. So the moment I tip it over, it's gonna spill out a little bit. So you don't wanna go too full, but where it screws in, let's see if I can get under there and show it to you, is going to be, let's see, right here. So I'm not sure if you can see that or not, but it just screws on right there. And I don't know if that was in focus or not, I couldn't tell. But I'm gonna go ahead and attempt to do that. And what I'm gonna do is actually put the phone down while I do, and then I'll report back. As you can see, it is now in place, and I have handwritten 3/19/24, which is today, 18,062 miles. And unfortunately, it looks like I wrote that with my left hand, as I'm right-handed. But mostly it was because the pen was awkward to fit between here, and so I was writing goofy. The last one came out much nicer, and I can't remember if I wrote it on before I threaded it on or after. I would guess before based on how that looks. So I would advise you do it before. But yeah, you can see right here, unfortunately, there's a tiny little drip. You'll see right there, a little tiny drip of oil that's forming. So I'm gonna wipe that before it gets out of control. But really what that is just the residual oil in that gutter. You're going to want to wipe everything down and, like I said, put the filter back on there, and you're going to want to hand tighten it. So you don't want to get crazy with it. You just want to sort of hand tighten it to a point where it gets tight, And then I like to give it 1/2 crank. So I'll move it another 180. And by that point, it's pretty tough to turn, but it'll be easy with a wrench. And so, you know, I mean, as the engine heats up, as the oil is heated and flowing in and out, that's why it's important to have a really good seal, because metal expands. And so even if it's not super tight to begin with, you want it to be snug, and the heat will take over the rest. And yeah, pretty straightforward stuff. But then again, here's the drain plug, and I've cleaned it up a little bit. And so, yeah, not too bad. And so the next step really is to let your car back down. And you want it to be down on an even level spot. So my garage floor is fine because it's nice and level. But I'm gonna let it all the way down, and then we're going to add the motor row. Now, once the car's back down on earth, you're gonna go ahead and, again, if you haven't already removed your 710 cap or your oil cap, make sure that that is indeed removed. Like I told you before, I remove mine before I drain it. I don't want any weird vacuum or any weird, you know, anything. I wanna be able to make sure the air can escape. So I always remove it first. But in the event you didn't, now is your time. Then what you're gonna wanna do is use a funnel. And you don't have to, but I like to use a funnel. That was from the Dollar Tree, so it literally cost me $1. I've had it and used it a dozen times or more, but anyway, it's inexpensive to have. It's very helpful. It keeps your engine bay a little bit more tidy. I recommend it. Next, I'm gonna put the other 4.5-ish quarts of oil in, and then we're gonna start the car. Once you're done, you wanna start the car and let it run for 30 seconds. Doesn't need to be much longer than that. You can leave it running for 1 or 2 minutes if you want to, but 30 seconds is at least long enough to kind of get the motor running, get the oil pumping, get it moving all the way through the engine without, you know, getting it super hot or anything like that. You just need it to lubricate everything one new time, and then moving forward, it's all ready to go. So one thing I forgot to mention is before I put the car down, I went ahead and wiped down really the whole underside of the motor, but really the reason for that is because if while you're, you know, making a mess, oil gets on something, it's gonna later drip down onto your floor. It doesn't harden, it just drips until it's gone. So what ends up happening is if you spill and you get a little residual oil from, say, your filter being screwed on, mine did this, you didn't see it, but mine actually leaked when I leaned it over to kind of screw it on. It dripped down the side of my oil pan. So I had to give that a little wipe down. You know, just a couple other things. I wanted to wipe things down and everything looks clean underneath. And then I put the car down and did the same on the top. So once I used a filter or a funnel, so no oil got on anything. It was actually a really clean process. It didn't even drip down the side of the jug. But had I made a mess, it would be a lot easier to clean up, you know, not having to get the car back up in the air and doing all that stuff again. So I'd encourage you to do that. The very last step, which I just did before getting back on the video, was checking the dipstick. So check your dipstick, let the car run for 30 seconds, check the dipstick again, and make sure that it's right where it needs to be. Some cars, for example, Mustangs, there was a large number of cars in the late 80s, very early 90s, Fox body cars, that the dipsticks were wrong. And they were off by like, not quite a quart, but 1/2 to 3/4 of a quart. And so there were people that were putting like 5.5 or 5 3/4 quarts in this exact motor, and that's not good. So everything you read online for this particular 302 is, who cares what your dipstick says? At an oil change, 5 quarts. Put some in your filter, the rest in the motor. 5 quarts is what this engine takes to run. So the long and short of it is, I don't know if my dipstick's right or not. I mean, I know for my own purposes, I marked my own dipstick because I had to modify it because I took off the fuel injection, and that's a whole nother story. So my dipstick's already modified, but if you have this motor in an 80s or 90s or different Mustang and you're using the factory dipstick, there's a chance that it's off. So just be aware of that. 5 quarts into this car. That's all I got for you guys this week. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment down below. Do you do your oil changes, or do you take it to a Jiffy Lube, or what do you do? You know, let me know down below. And is this valuable content? Is this stuff that you'd like to see more on? Happy to do more stuff like this. Just preventative maintenance things. You know, a lot of the time we're talking about how cool cars are and stuff like that, but people often, you know, overlook the necessity of simple maintenance. And so I wanted to get this done for this car show tomorrow. and I figured it was great content for us here on the channel. So thanks again for watching. May every investment you make be a good one. Till next time.